I still remember this conversation as it was yesterday. It was on the 21st December of 2020, and I can assure you it's deep within my heart. I give you Murielle Marie. I don't know what happened on that 21st of December. It was that period when Saturnus and Jupiter were literally coming together, a very special occasion which for 100 years never happened, and it happened on the 21st of December. Murielle calls herself, or even better Marie, calls herself an unapologetic rebel philosopher. She is writing right now a book about trauma, as she has been grown up in a family where her father had an alcohol abuse. And we talk about self-love, we even talk about self-pleasure. And so it's a very, very, very intense, inspiring conversation. Enjoy this very special conversation. For me personally, the conversation number 1 of 2020. Murielle Marie.
Welcome to What's on Your Mind with Peter Snowart. Every week, a guest talks about his or her story, and that story can inspire you to change your own. Here's Peter.
Hi, Marie. Hi, Murielle.
Hi, Peter.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. It's so great to be here tonight.
It's the feeling is mutual. Now, where do I start? You call yourself the dream alchemist, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
and
it's
also,
a little, yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. Well, it's a little outdated. I'm sort of changing that a little bit, but it's still valid. It's still valid. But I prefer to call myself a little bit more unapologetic and a little bit more rebellious.
Yeah. I think that covers exactly. And also philosopher comes after those.
Yeah, I always think it's a long one to say. When it's on Instagram, it's easier. People can read it. But I have a philosophy major, so that's, I'm a thinker. But besides that, I like the rebellious side and the no apologies given.
Yeah, that's something that the vibe of your post of Instagram resonate, that rebellious spirit. Now, so you have a major in philosophy. Did you then immediately went into the corporate life, or did you then did something else, or how did it happen?
So as I was finishing my degree, I already started working. So we're talking about, the new millennium. So around 2000, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I should lie a little bit to make myself a bit younger. But no, that's when it was. I was approached by a company in Brussels, and they needed somebody to help them with the transition from print into online media.
Yeah.
And because I had dabbled a little bit, that's really the only thing I did. I had dabbled a little bit with what used to be Dreamweaver at the time, which is still, around, I guess. And Photoshop, when you only had one layer and you could only go one step back, the good times with Photoshop. They had asked me if I wanted to lead as sort of a project manager their digital transformation, which was from print to creating websites. So even before graduating, I started as a freelancer, and that was the first thing that I did.
But then 7 years ago, you really said goodbye to the corporate life, and you said, I'm going to go 180 degrees, a new, how do you say that, a new life, a new chapter. You were, and what triggered you to do that? Was that the classical burnout, working too much, had no respect, too political, typical the corporate rat race bullshit thing?
Lots of questions.
Yes, I know. Or was it because that you felt that you were living a life which was not close to who you really are?
I think all of those, in a way. And so, yes, so 7 years ago, we're 2013. So from that first freelance job, I eventually started my own web agency.
Okay.
And I sold that web agency in 2013 to another company.
Okay.
I still had to stay on a little bit because, you have transition, all of those things. So I stayed on until, let's say, the end of 2014, mid-2014, end of 2014. But by that time, I already felt like this is not my world anymore. It's so one of the things that really struck me was I always felt like I was one of the guys. I'd always felt like that. Like there's no difference between me and the guys, and I can achieve the same things as they can, etc. I was very naive in that, and always like, push through doors and through ceilings, whatever. But on a particular evening at that company that it like taken over my, or not taken over, but bought my company, there was sort of a drink, whatever. And everybody was like in little groups talking about stuff. And I was a project manager at that time. So I was project managing under the umbrella of that company. And I see a group of other project managers and managers, all guys in suits. And I hear they're talking about a project that I'm connected with. So I want to go over there with my glass and my little bag, and I want to continue the conversation with them. And when I arrived, they all stopped talking. And they looked at me and they wanted to start like, I don't know, a girl conversation, I guess, something that had nothing to do with work. And I don't know why, because it had been like cooking inside of me for a while that there actually was a difference. And that night and that event sort of triggered me wanting to change and wanting to do something else. And so that's when I really went in search of what am I going to do next? Like I couldn't do that anymore. I didn't want to be in that world anymore. I wasn't interested in these types of projects anymore. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to think more. I wanted to be that philosopher again that I'd, studied for at university. Now, of course, that was a couple of years after my parents passed away, because they passed away in 2010. Okay. And I always say, and it's easy looking back, when you connect dots, that's the moment everything changed for me. But looking back, it really was. That was the moment where my world completely collapsed and I had to build it back up. And I tried to build it back up with the same dream. But then a couple of years in, I realized it wasn't going to work. And so those trigger moments really like started that sort of journey into discovering what I really wanted to do.
So, and when did you discover then, because I assume it's a process, that your real potential and passion lies in helping other people fulfilling their potential, their passion in life? How did you discover that?
Well, I'd sort of always done it. So when I was freelancing, people would come to me with ideas for projects, and they were very doubtful about the projects themselves. And I was the one that would usually say, it's a grand idea. We could do it like this, like this, like this. So I've always been very naive and very like a believer that whatever we can think of, we can create. Okay. And so I always sort of infused in people that little spark that they could do more than perhaps they believe themselves. So I've definitely done that, in these other positions. But then when I really started to think about what I wanted to do, and when I enrolled in a life coaching course, because that's eventually what I did after really thinking about it for about 6 months, and then, looking at all my options, what I realized was that I had done that myself. Like I had lived a small life because of the own limitations that I had put on myself, even though looking from the outside, people would look at me and say, wow, and she had a web agency and she did this and she did that. But I wanted other things for myself. That wasn't really what I wanted. That was what I did. That was, what put money in the bank. Yep. And that was what it was expected of me. But that wasn't really what I wanted. What I wanted was to write, to be creative, to express myself differently, to be rebellious, whatever. Like the things I definitely wasn't. And so the fact that I realized that for myself brought me closer to wanting to do that for other people as well.
Okay. Now you just briefly touched upon the fact that you say thoughts are actually powerful. Mind your thoughts because they can manifest things, whatever. Where did you learn that that's the fact that thoughts are actually a very powerful thing? Did you read that? Did you read some kind of Think and Grow Rich book or something? Or did you learn that from your parents? Where did you get that?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. So I obviously read Think and Grow Rich, but I don't think the idea came from there.
Mm,
I think as creatives, we innately know that what we can imagine, we can turn into something. So I think there is this innate knowledge that exists, right? But then, of course, there's society and programming and unlearning and going to school, and then, school's killing creativity. So then we come out of that and we don't know it anymore. So we have to relearn it. But, and then I guess I probably read it, but it was a message, that you need to get multiple times.
yes.
It's not because thoughts become things. I'm so convinced of that now. And actually, look around yourself. I can look around here. Everything that's here, somebody thought of, right? Like it's crystal clear in my mind now how that works. But I didn't get it the first time. It took a long time before I got it.
It's something that you can analyze, but you need to feel it with your whole body.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs to be in every cell of your DNA in your body that you because it's a feel thing. People thoughts it's one thing, but that you need to add the feeling part to it in order to manifest. Otherwise, it stays a kind of a mental thoughts, because there is another side. You are not your thoughts.
Agreed. Yes.
Which is also something very interesting, which a lot of people think they are their thoughts. I'm not enough. I should do this or this. I should behave like this and this. I'm a woman of this age. I should act like this. I should have achieved this. I should have, I don't know what. And if, I had a colleague, she said, when I'm going to be 40, I want to have a relationship again. Where did you get that idea? Even I had it. When I'm 40, I wanted to have a baby. Why? I don't know. Because
it comes from somewhere. Yeah, that's so weird. I like that you're mentioning that. I think they're connected to one another. I think you need to understand that you are not your thoughts to also understand that thoughts can become things.
Yes.
Because otherwise your thoughts are you.
Yeah.
And it becomes so much harder to create, let alone to hear all of the negative stuff you tell yourself all day long. One of the first things that I did when my parents passed, because I was really not doing well for a long time, is enroll in a mindfulness training, like 8 weeks of mindfulness. I can honestly say, coming from a much more corporate and masculine place, let's say, it was also the first thing that I did that ever resembled anything spiritual. When I think about it now, I think like, how is that possible that I lived without spirituality before, but I did. So that was the first thing. I go into the first session. We're all sitting around in, a circle, which was also new for me. Like all of these things, like everything that I did there was new. Meditation, new, talking and seeing other people cry, new, like everything was new. And the first thing she says is, have you ever thought about the fact that you are not your thoughts? I kid you not. It's the first thing she says. I don't remember anything else from that session, but that hit me, that because I was such an anxious and stressed person up until that point. I literally was burdened with incessant negative thoughts about myself, about everything that was so wrong about me in the world. And so when she said that really had a domino effect on me. I was like, I never thought about it that way. I am not my thoughts. Of course, again, not a moment in time.
No.
A few years of practicing that thought and trying to figure out what it meant for me. But simply put, Peter, it's meant absolute liberation. Absolute liberation.
I remember the day I was 34 and I called how do you say that, therapist. And And she said, what's the problem? I said, I don't know. And I went there for a year and a half, I believe. Because I got out of the divorce and I was guilt. I had no any I didn't even felt emotions anymore. And then she said, this is the last time. And I want you to remember one thing. You are not your thoughts. And I looked at her like I have just seen a purple cow standing in a refrigerator or something. I was like, what the hell does that mean? And it took me 2-3 years to really understand what she was saying. But now it's like, of course. Yeah, I also meditate twice a day. It's like, yeah, of course. But when you say that and to somebody who is not aware or not so far in the process, yeah, it's like, yeah, but that is indeed one of the most important things that you can, like, if you want to, how do you say that, live a more lighter life, that's for me the key, like one of the keys.
Yeah, and I really like what you said, because it's like a point in the journey that really is gonna sort of ignite a lot of things, because it opens a door to so many more possibilities. Because as long as you are your thoughts, you're very limited, because your thoughts tell you constantly who you are, and there is no way of escaping that. But when you realize it's just a voice, and usually it's not your own voice, it's your parents, it's society, it's a teacher, it's whatever, but it's not you. You get to put a little bit of space, just a little bit in the beginning between you and those thoughts. And that gives you a little bit of room to breathe. It's also the reason why I named my TEDx talk "Don't
Yeah, I was
Believe
going to say
Anything
your
You Think."
TEDx
Yeah,
talk. Yeah.
that was the. It's not my best performance, although I think it. I mean, if I should do it again now, because I did it a few years ago, right? So I wasn't so, like, my body of work wasn't so elaborate. My theories weren't so elaborate. But the main idea is simply don't believe what you think.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, scrutinize it before you accept it, because that's really going to liberate you.
That's an interesting one. The TEDx was when?
2016. So
So
yeah,
4 years
1 year
ago.
after. Yeah.
Yeah,
4
because I
years,
saw it and I
almost
think,
5.
and
Yeah.
it's a great one. It's really,
Thank you.
it's really well structured because I really I listened to it. That's, by the way, my big dream, to do a TEDx, but that's something else. The If you look back now at
Yeah.
yourself 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
how do you look at yourself then? Do you look with self-love? Do you look with, oh,
No,
because
a lot
because
of
because
self-love. Yeah.
because I looked at it and I was like, damn, she's doing it. And there was some kind of passion about your conviction of your message. And it was you're really using storytelling. So I was like, I cannot compare the Marie of now with the Murielle from 4 years ago, for instance, if she would do tomorrow a TEDx, for
Yeah.
instance. And that's an interesting, because I asked myself same question. This is now, I think, conversation 64, 65 or something. If I compare that with number one, for me, it still feels like not the first one. But if you look at it over time, there is some kind of progression and things that you are learning. So how
Yeah.
are you
Oh,
looking
what a
back?
beautiful question. Thank you. I never asked myself that question, but as you were talking, I was thinking about myself on the stage and preparation, because I did want to do a good job. So I did want, like, of course, I read how to do a TEDx talk, and I followed all the guidelines, and I had somebody help me and all of that. And then I studied it. I had a dog at the time, a Labrador, and we would go on walks, him and me, every day, and I would just say my talk and say it again, and then I would do it in front of a tiny audience, and then listen. So I did do a lot to make it as good as I could make it. When I look at myself now, I'm very proud of myself for having done it. I'm definitely just really liking seeing me on the stage, so there is definitely no cringe. I don't cringe. The only thing I would do differently, and that's why I'm saying it's not my best work, is I still cookie cuttered a lot of things back then. I would still bring things in a very gentle way.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
and what's changed in the last 5 years for me, and especially in the last 3 since I've been divorced, is not really caring that much anymore about what other people think. And so the way I would bring it, I think, would be a little bit more raw, more honest, and maybe a little bit more rebellious.
Yeah. Then you were like more like a French bulldog, and now you would be like a tiger.
Yeah. And I would still wear the same thing though, because I think what I was wearing was definitely already exactly what I wanted to convey.
But it's energy, it's vibe.
But it's the energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there yet. So
that's an interesting one that you say, because I consider myself in terms of communicating as raw, and I had to really accept myself for that, because I was used to, and especially in corporate worlds, I had to behave in a certain way. And now I work in an environment where they stimulate my raw communication style. But the thing is that it feels so liberating once you can really show who you really are, in touch with yourself, and don't fucking care what the other opinions are going to be, even to the point that you say, I'm willing to take the risk of losing people in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
that's
in the end,
a strong one.
Because in the end, the winner, if you can call it a win, it's not a competition. The one who is going to win is you yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing that you can do towards the world, is to be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. How is that going? Like showing the raw you at work? Is that going well?
But it's not about at work only. It's also on Instagram. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
I did a guitar show. So it's also because of you, because I see you with your rebel thing, because I'm also consider myself also as a rebel. But I like the fact that I mix like this business thing, this selling thing, with spirituality, and everything combined together.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
It's all
because you're a person.
Oh, yes.
Hello, right? yeah. And that's why, I for a long time, I really tried to fit into that personal brand sort of theory. Like you have to be this and that and that. And I had to throw that overboard and just say, I'm going to be me. And I'm going to talk about the stuff that I find interesting, because it's not sustainable if you always have to think about every little thing you want to say. So, and I've seen that on your Instagram as well.
But if you are you, then the inspiration, you're in a kind of a flow. You don't have to think, you're always creative. You're like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas,
and it becomes a story. It's a story of you.
Yeah. And it's in some way something that you can feel when somebody is really themselves, and it makes them, I don't know, appealing, attractive. It makes them, there's some special thing. Whereas, again, another personal brand coach. Here we go again. I'm a little bit now black and white. So, but I think it's the most beautiful thing you can do to yourself and towards the world, is to really to show up and to be yourself and to show who you really are in all your different aspects.
Yeah, and they always say, and this was one that I had to really learn as well. You have to give before you ask, right? Especially online. It's been said a lot in marketing, like you have to serve and before you do a pitch or whatever. I never pitch. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram, but I don't pitch a lot. I'm not doing that that much. But since I've embraced really talking about all of these aspects of myself. For instance, one of the things that I find really important to talk about, especially towards younger women, is sexuality. Mm-hmm. And it's, I'm a big advocate of self-love, and I feel that self-pleasure is an integral part of that. So self-pleasure is a must, and so on a regular basis, right? It's a must. And on a regular basis, I post some stuff that I find on the internet that I like about it. I have been so surprised at the amount of DMs that I get from young women that have never masturbated, asking me, because I think it's a real good stress reliever, among other things, right? And I don't know, but when I'm very sick, it also usually helps. So just saying. And so I posted something where I said that it helped against stress and all of these things. And I get these DMs of these women asking, do you think it would really help? Because I've never masturbated before. And I think now that I've seen you talk about it, that I want to try.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not a sex specialist. I'm not a sexuologist, but I do send them to Oh My God, Yes, or, other platforms where they can learn more stuff about that. But what I find so interesting is when you're yourself, you realize people resonate with the stuff. If you followed the blueprint for the brand, you would never include.
Yeah.
Right. And it's never the stuff you think people are going to resonate with. And so, and the fact that I can help that way is really important to me and has become more and more important to me. Because it's also about people getting unstuck. That's my sweet spot. I say that I help, multi-passionate creatives get unstuck. But helping someone masturbate, I find, is like, when I've done that, I'm really happy. I'm like, a little bit unstuck today.
For a woman that's really tapping into creativity, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
For a man, that's something different. But and also the fact that if then they meet a partner and they expect then that they be a tiger in bed and they don't know their own manual, how can you then show the directions of how does it work? Then they expect to put their inner happiness outside of them, and they expect that this magical God is going to make them come.
Who usually only has seen porn, in which women anatomy is just not right. It's not the way they show it, and women come based on how a guy looks. So I mean it's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and it's also mentally not good for your brain, because it's always about the connection.
I agree. Yeah.
Now this is an interesting turning point.
So I am a business coach. I just want to make that clear to everyone. I'm not a sex coach.
But passion is passion, eh?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I am very passionate. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, in all aspects of life. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Now, where was I?
So before that, we were talking about.
No, we're not going to go back. We're only going forward.
Okay.
Now, in our pre-conversation, you are the 21st of December, which is like Jupiter and Saturn are really on the same spot in Aquarius. You also mentioned it today on your Instagram. Did you also felt in this week a very intense kind of energy, or you just?
Yeah, I would say I did. I don't keep track. So the fact that Jupiter and Saturn are so close to each other, I really appreciate it more for the astronomical event that it is, rather than the influence that it can have on me. I'm not so well versed in everything that has to do with astrology, although I do have one of my best friends is one of the best French astrologers you can think of. She does my chart every year, and she knows me better than I know myself. So I know there is truth and a lot of wisdom in there. But now that you mention it, I did feel a surge of energy this week. This has been a very special week up to today, I have to say.
Because
did that answer your question?
Yes. Okay. But it's like a bridge to a next question, because okay. Because they say this today is a very special event. Also the fact that it's the 21st of December, so the shortest shortest day. In our pre-conversation, you talked about a new 5 years chapter. Maybe this is the first day, Marie.
Yeah. It's possible. Well, Yeah, I'm somebody who really loves structure. So, and I was thinking about that when I was talking to you about it. In theory, it should have started on the 1st of January 2020, right? Because the previous 5-year bucket started in 2015, and the previous one before that, the death of my parents, was 2010.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right. I think this 2020 year, like, it doesn't count. It doesn't count for a gazillion different reasons. It's been a year of enormous growth, and I think it's been like that for many people. But I think you're right. I think this could be the actual beginning.
So who is going to be Marie within 5 years? When we are talking again, physically then? Because now I'm going to do, within a couple of weeks, doing physical podcasts.
Okay.
So I don't hope we're going to wait 5 years to have a next conversation, but...
No, it's long, but yeah. You decide, you're the boss. Yeah.
Who is Marie then within 5 years?
Well, definitely a writer, because that's one of my aims to. So I'm close to finishing the first draft of my first actual book. So I know I probably still have a year, because I want to research a lot of things now, and I want to edit it, and I want to do a good job. So it's probably going to take a year, and it's not my full-time job. I do this just on the side for fun, right? It's my creative project. But I definitely want to have more writing in my life. I also want to go back to nature more. I'm thinking of relocating, buying a piece of land, starting to live a little bit more off the grid, still connected, obviously, but, doing that. I'm having my whole back tattooed with a traditional Japanese tattoo next year.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't see that from the front, but it's going to be on my back. And I think apart from that, what I'm really looking for is even more freedom and liberation. So the journey we're on is a journey that never really ends, I think. I don't think there is an end station.
No, the destination is a journey.
Yes. So there is no point where we're ever going to be able to stop and say, I'm here, But I am so excited in discovering like what other layers are within me that I want to peel, and what other things. We were talking about thought becoming things, but I also believe we create our reality, because that's the same mechanism. And so becoming really good at creating my own reality the way that I want it to be, I think that's where I would like to be in 5 years from now.
And how does that look like? A life full of liberation and freedom. What does that mean? You're going to sit all day writing on a chair, enjoying of something to drink with the sun, looking at the lake between the trees?
No, I don't really see myself do that. I think it's going to bring me somehow closer to people. I really love the work that I do, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that I get to help people, creative humans, like also go after that freedom and liberation in a way, is really essential. So that's definitely going to stay in my life. But I think I am going to approach it from a much more creative space.
In nature.
Well, yeah, in nature, but still, I mean, I'm not going to be a recluse, if that's the question. I don't see myself, being just in my little cabin in the woods and, living from there. I need people in my life. Okay. But I also need nature in my life.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a mix of those two.
Yeah, for me, nature too. That's also my dream, living in nature and not in a city, because the energy is different, and I feel I don't know, cleaner. Did you ever hug a tree?
Of course, I hug trees all the time. I'm not kidding. I do that all the time. And somebody, because in a far away, I'm sorry, I stopped you.
No, go ahead.
In a far away past, I had an environmental blog. I had one for 6 years. And it was a really cool project, actually. I had one person, So I had looked for writers. I financed all of that myself through the profits of my web agency. And so it was just a side project. Never made any money because I had a big block between doing something, environmental and somehow making money with it. Thank God I overcame that now, but otherwise it would probably still exist. But so for 6 years, I financed it myself, and I had a writer in every European country.
Okay.
And they reported on local environmental news, and then they wrote little articles in English, and then it came on the site. And I remember one time I was explaining that to a man, and he was sort of trying to seduce me. It wasn't all that interesting, but anyway, so he was trying to seduce me. And I'm talking about the blog, and he said, "Oh, are you one of those tree hugging types?" And and I was like, yeah, I do that sometimes. And so that was the end of that. Anyway, so every time anybody asks me if I hug a tree, I think about that guy.
No, but
I do.
It's a serious question, because I learned it via a weekend, I think 2 months ago, in October was it, and we had to go out barefooted, bare naked foot, how do you say that? So with our foots naked in the grass, and then they say, just choose a tree and hug it. Just stand there, feel the energy, feel everything flowing. And for me, there was in my head quite some resistance. I'm like, what? Okay. And I did it, and it was a really intense experience. And since then, I go with my baby, actually toddler. I cannot say a baby, to a 3.5 years old boy, in the woods, and then he does it also with me, and it's something amazing. And now I ask people, do you hug a tree? And sometimes they look at me, what the hell are you saying? And they're like, you really should do that. You should try that. It's something very, very special. I could really feel the energy flowing in my body. And
I feel very like almost lifted when I hug a tree. And there is this amazing book, I don't know if you know it, The Secret Life of Trees. Have you ever read it? It's this this guy who has worked in a national forest, I think in Germany, for so many years. And he really talks about how trees are alive and how they communicate with each other, and how, when an insect is doing something there on a tree, that tree is going to signal all the other trees, and then those trees are going to start to protect themselves. And so that only increases my belief that when you touch a tree and when you hug a tree, the tree knows, I mean, people are going to say, what are they talking about? But it's true. I do believe that. Plus, it's even good for immunity, because they have done research in how immune, like children with asthma, how many of them go outside and play in nature and whatever. And I'm probably saying this all wrong. But anyway, what I remember was, if you go outside and you touch not just trees, but nature, and you will get much more spores of, whatever on your body, and that's going to stimulate your immune system. So we're all connected, not just with one another, but with nature.
We are nature.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Sometimes we forget that.
Mm-hmm. It's true. We are.
Now, if you could go back in time. No, another question. You're writing a book right now. So it's an biograph?
Yes, it's autobiographical.
And so that means it's nonfiction.
Correct.
Can you...
This is the first time I'm going to talk about it. Yeah. Sure. No. Thank you for the question. Well, so my life's journey has not been an easy one. It's been a journey that started being born to an alcoholic father.
Okay.
Who drank a bottle of whiskey every day for the time that I knew him alive. I know, I mean, I'm one of those people that can say they never actually saw their father sober, which is true. I know other people can say that too, and they're in my heart, but I can say that as well. And so growing up in such an environment caused a lot of attachment issues for me. And when I got divorced in 2018, after separating from my now ex-husband late 2017, I promised myself and decided that I was gonna aim for healthy attachment, something I'd never known in my life until then. Privately, I mean, right? So not in my professional life, because or with friends or whatever, because I can entertain really good relationships with certain types of people. But when it's romantic, I have a lot of daddy issues, or had at least. And so I've been in that process for now 2 years and a half. And I've come out of the tunnel learning a lot about all the trauma that I had and moving through that trauma. And I felt that that story deserved to be written and shared. And so, and it's been very cathartic for me as well. It's sort of the cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
Now that I've come to understand why I made the decisions that I made when I was younger, and why, you know, all of that. And it transformed me really, not just the process, but the writing is sort of the last step in really this transformation into this new form of attachment for me.
And when do you want to publish it?
Well, I wrote it first and foremost for myself. And that's a tip I can give to a lot of people. Like, don't look too much, especially if it's your first book and you're not a writer. Don't think of publishing even. So the first few months, I tricked myself writing. So I write every morning for about 30 to 40 minutes. And I do it systematically. So I'm very diligent in doing that. And I now have a book of more than 100,000 words, which is, I mean, it's a draft, so it's nowhere near being good for publication, but it's a book. And so I think it's going to take me another year, because I'm reading a lot of books about, first I wanted to get the story out, which I more or less have done now. I have 1 or 2 chapters I still want to write, and then the story is on paper and it makes sense, which I'm happy about. But now I want to infuse it with actual theories about trauma. There's stuff in there, but I want to, you know, like fact check a number of things that I've said and stuff like that. Plus it needs to be edited. So I think a year, maybe something like that. I don't know. But I'm still not doing it for it to be published. I'm still doing it for myself. But I do want to do the best work that I can with it.
A trauma, which is something that I've learned, is normally on a multiple layers. It's a mental, it's physical, spiritual, and emotional. How did you, I mean, of course, writing the book has been very therapeutical for you. Have you used other techniques, like in the classical, but also in the more spiritual, I'm going to call it. I don't want to call I don't want to use the name, the word alternative therapies.
Yes. Yeah, I did many things, and I think overcoming trauma and working through it, especially of that kind, right? And I don't want to say that's worse than other trauma. All trauma is really bad, but our attachment style is decided in childhood. And when we are subject to aggressive, erratic behavior that you cannot understand as a child, that has a tremendous impact on how you're gonna create relationships and attachment with other people. So first I thought it would be enough for me to go and see a therapist once in a while, right? Because I've been again in that process for probably 10 years. Even when I was married to my ex, I would go to therapy, but I would stay on the surface. I think with trauma, you know, trauma is such a clever beast. So you lie to yourself and you pretend so many things that aren't true, but you're not aware of it. So when I would go to therapy, it would be a good news show, right? Because I wasn't aware of all these layers you were talking about. So, but probably it did have an effect, whichever that may be. But then when I separated 2.5 years ago, I went in search because I had PTSD because of the separation. My ex left in a very brutal way, and a lot of stuff came out, and I couldn't really understand what had happened. And because of that, I developed PTSD, so post-traumatic stress. And so I went in search of somebody who could help me with the post-traumatic stress, which I found. His name is Glenn. He's amazing. If anyone needs somebody in the Antwerp area, I can hook you up. He's fantastic. And so first we worked through the PTSD. And when I saw that actually worked, and Glenn uses a mix of techniques. He does a lot of somatic work. He does a lot of meditative work. He gives you tools that you can practice at home. So it's not just talk therapy. In the beginning, I was very much against it. I was like, I'm not closing my eyes, Glenn. I'm not going to breathe for you. You can try all you want. This is not happening. But he kept at it. So it took about, 6 months, right? For him to get me to close my eyes and follow his voice and whatever. And then from there, of course, I opened myself up to all of the other crazy stuff he wanted to do with me, which, was very beneficial. And after 2 years, there have been moments where I could literally feel a layer of trauma disappear. I have had a number, and I'm talking about them in the book because they're very personal, but very, very special realizations that when I had them released me of decades of not feeling adequate, of making bad decisions, of not, falling for the right people, whatever. And almost in an instant, when the trauma dissipates, you become this new person and you can make different decisions. So that's why I have a lot of compassion with people who deal with that, because it's such a complex thing.
And can you now look to yourself in a mirror and feeling 100% love after you have been shining a light on your own darknesses? Because you have to face your own darkness, your own demons, those dark parts that you maybe don't want to be confronted with, because it's going to be very painful. And in the Western world, pain is something negative, whereas pain is actually a motor or an engine for growth, to solve something. Can you say, I'm now at the point, 21st of December, the day of the light, I would call it, the big conjunction. Can you now look at yourself with I wouldn't say 100% self-love? Yes, Murielle Marie, you're great as you are, and I'm completely detached from my past.
99%.
Which is close.
I have which is very close. One of the things, and I appreciate that question so much. You ask good questions, Peter.
Thank you,
but it's also about accepting that you are you, and that you made crappy mistakes, and that you didn't know better. And instead of, that voice we were talking about that is going to bash you in your head and say, what a bad person you are, or whatever, have that voice. I don't have that voice very much anymore. Sometimes she's trying, to say something, but it doesn't last long. But the voice that I have in my head is a voice, it's more a funny voice. It's more like, remember when we did that really stupid thing because we didn't know better, and then we have a laugh together, and then it's like, yeah, I remember that was stupid. Or, not stupid, because that's not what I want to say about trauma. It's not, whatever you're going through or doing is not stupid, but when you know better, you do better. Silly. Or yeah, it all looks silly from a distance when
Yes.
you're not troubled by it anymore. It's
Yeah.
like, how could I be so, like, why wasn't I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever. But I never blame myself anymore. Of course, I've done that a lot in the
Yeah.
past, but
Yeah.
I never do that anymore.
And can you now say that, of course, that's a some people will disagree, but let's assume that you could not choose where you were born with those
Mhm.
parents. Can you now, and also that situation, yeah, it's you can go for a victim role, of course, and this is, think I, something that you see a lot of with your clients or your coaches. Can you now, for yourself, see that all those things which are very painful and, yeah, which cut you very deep with a kind of a knife, look at those things as kind of gifts to bring you where you are right now?
That's such a tough question, huh? It's $1 million question. There are definitely a number of things that I would not change, definitely, um, because they've made me the person that I am. I think you can really love yourself 99% and still have regrets,
Of
right?
course, of course.
My biggest regret, I wouldn't change my life. I wouldn't. I would keep the same parents. I would keep the same exes, even, like, because I learned so many lessons throughout
Yeah.
all of that. But I would want to be aware that I can change and that I can take my life into my own hands much, much sooner. That's what I would want.
Would you say that to the Murielle Marie when she was 16?
I would say that to her, yeah. I would tell her that if she goes looking for help, she's going to find it. And that she doesn't have to do it alone, because that's what I thought. Because I was born in an environment where I was forced to do everything alone and to survive. I took that on as the way to be for a very long time. And if I could go back, that's what I would change.
No. Yeah, you developed survival coping mechanisms, which is of course normal, but it's yeah. So now maybe we can say that you're really living.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I very often think that my life only started, I usually say, 10 years ago, but I think that I'm more and more alive every single year, every single day.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. It's very strange that every day that passes by, and the more of these deep conversations I have, and the more I show up as who I really am, and the more raw, the more I feel alive. And I'm like, I don't care about the age. It's just a number. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
younger, and I feel, yeah, more alive. That's very, very beautiful said. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
true. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's true.
I feel that too. And I think it comes with this really this insights into ourselves, right? Like into, but all of our senses as well.
Yeah.
I know that I've, for instance, understand a lot of things much better now than I did when I was younger. Like, it's almost as if I'm seeing them better, or when I read, I understand them better, or that I feel better. So, and all of that enhancement, so to speak, comes, I think, because I've worked so hard in all of these different areas to become better.
Can you when you are meeting a potential client of yours physically,
Mm-hmm.
can you feel their energy? Can you feel how they feel? Can you see how they are, what they are feeling? Even see, I wouldn't say what their challenges are, but what they're struggling, or see what, if they are speaking the truth or not.
I get a lot from people very fast. What I mostly get is what people really want and don't want to admit.
Okay.
And I keep notes from clients, of course, and those notes are confidential, obviously. But when I go back and I look at the end of a coaching series, for instance, when I look at what clients have realized about themselves and what they now know they want to do and the changes they're going to bring into their lives, very often when I go to the first page of my notes, when we have a preliminary meeting, I will jot down my thoughts that I will never share with the client, because the client has to, come up with their own ideas. It's not up to me what they want to do. They have to decide. But I will jot down what I think they want. And very often what I think they want comes true at the end of the series. And I realized it with a couple of clients where I was crystal clear, even before working with them, what they had to do, right? The way that we say that in the world. Never told them, right? Also didn't influence them, because I can't influence them. They have to decide what they do in the sessions. But they ended where, I thought they were going to end up. And ever since, I've been like really trying to figure it out so that I have it in my notes when I coach people. So yeah, I do feel that. And I think it's not, I don't have a sixth sense. I'm not supernatural. I think people will tell you, but they will tell you in another way. Like they won't use the right words, but they will tell you. And because I've coached so many people in the meantime, I've become really good at hearing when they're telling me.
You mentioned that was actually the first sentence that you mentioned in our pre-conversation, that you now are so good at deep listening, I would call it, that you cannot turn off that switch anymore.
No.
So that you're listening to the words, which are only like 20% of the communication, but you're listening to the tone, the voice, the complete non-verbal communication, what the real agenda and the real message is.
Yeah. And what's also really interesting in my work is because it has to do with trust as well, right? People need to trust you before they're really going to tell you what's at play for them. Because I offer like this free session. So I talk with people about their dreams and all they want to do. And usually it's about 30 minutes. Usually the first 25 minutes, I can sense that they're, very eager to tell me about them, et cetera, et cetera. But then in the last 5 minutes, when it's almost time to end, that's when they tell me what they really want to do. And usually it's like, oh, and there was this one little other thing that I was thinking about. I don't know if it's relevant, but I've been thinking. And that's when I open my ears, because everything before that was foreplay, let's say, right? Because this is what it's really all about. Because, and I think we can all do that with each other. You don't have to be a coach and you don't have to be a client. People will always, it's always in the details. But in the details, there is so much truth about what people really care about.
And does that then mean that, so when it's 30 minutes, like 20 minutes, they are kind of a smoke mirror that they are creating, is that they are afraid to really open up and be authentic and to show up who they really are and to stand there naked in front of you?
Well, it's not all smokes and mirrors, right? Like, I mean, people do show up and they want to be there and they want to share with you. I think it's just how the subconscious works more than anything else.
So the first 20 minutes is more like the mental picture, and then the last thing is more, it's really, that's your mission, your purpose from the heart. This is really what you are doing here.
Yeah, because you have to think there is also this element of scarcity. You're coming to an end. So, and that's when often, the heart takes over, like, oh, there is this one thing I really have to tell you now that I have you here and that we have this conversation. And in the beginning, we all have a tendency to be on autopilot, know, and it's still interesting and it's still true, but it's not always the essence.
I find it a very interesting one. If somebody is listening and they are like, and this is now a very high level question, I want to find out what my purpose / passion is. Where do I find that? That's a tricky question. I know it's a tricky question.
If I had the answer to that question, I would be a billionaire.
Yeah, but I don't think there's such a thing as finding it. So
No.
if you would
But
tell
it's
me,
still a good question, though. It's still a good question.
yes,
Yeah.
but I also feel if you would ask me, if you would tell me like 2 years ago, or even 1 year ago, you will start a podcast and having very deep, conscious conversations with people. I was like, are you fucking with me or what? And it was, and I remembered like yesterday, yeah. It was the 26th of December. I never told that online. It was the 26th of December 2019. And I was with some friends in Ghent having dinner. And my mom calls me. And she says, your nephew just committed suicide. He turned 50. And that was for me the click. And now I had it. I'm going to live my life and I don't care about the opinions anymore. Because I knew he didn't want to live. He studied psychology. He just, yeah. He was like, I think his birthday was on the 25th of May. It was the 25th of December, 25, 25, 50, circles round. I tried, not for me. I go to the next party. And I was like, okay, if that's your choice. And then for me, that was the trigger. And now I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to start the YouTube thing. And now I'm going to do it. I don't care where it brings. I'm going to do it. So can I say that now I feel this is like my soul mission or purpose, passion, whatever you want to call it, like you writing books. Because like just like you, I mean, this evening, a 19-year young woman sent me a DM via Instagram, and she said, Peter, I just listened to Elfie de Bruin, which is more like a spiritual conversation. And she also had a very traumatic story. And she said, Peter, I'm feeling bad and I feel depressed and I've have issues with relationships and I don't feel good about myself. But this conversation really shined a light on me. Thank you for that. And I was like, this is where this is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you would say, how do you come to that? It's really about experimenting and following that path of positive energy. It's like riding that car, but you only see like 100 meters ahead, and you just follow that positive energy, although it maybe sounds crazy and you don't make money or whatever. No, just follow it and magical things will happen. But you have to be prepared to show up in the world who you really are, even if it's unpopular, or even if it's if you have to do things which are, yeah, like for instance, talking about spiritual deep stuff. I mean, if you would say that to me within even in the beginning of Corona and beginning of 2020, that would be Peter, which is now George. So it's no, but it's true, and I love that process because it really feels like what you just mentioned like a half an hour ago, like an onion peeling all those layers off and really showing who you are, and it's again, it's that self-love.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Peter.
I know
And
it's
I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's,
no,
you know,
it's
because, but bad things often have sort of this effect on people, right? Like we all need to have our perfect storm
yeah,
that makes us finally do it,
yeah,
right? But I think what you say about the process is so true. I often tell my clients, you cannot think yourself into what you want to be. You have to do it.
yeah,
And you don't have to do, and there the problem is, very often they're waiting until they know exactly what they have to do. But if you wait for the moment you're going to know exactly what you have to do, you'll never do anything, because that wisdom only comes one step at a time, right? What you were saying about the lamp and just seeing in front of you. So it's by doing that you build awareness and clarity about what it is that
Yeah.
you want. And another thing, it's not a fixed thing, it
No.
changes, right? You now like enjoy spiritual conversations. Maybe a year ago you wouldn't.
Well,
So
I did, but I wouldn't do it in public.
see, so we're constantly evolving and changing, but that's the creative process.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's that thing we just had was like a dance, a creative dance of energies, and yeah, it's for me it's magical. It's
Mm-hmm.
like making music. If it's the
Mm-hmm.
same feeling you get when you are around with people and you have the same intention and you make music, and then suddenly you feel like there is like a kind of a vibe where the total is more than the sum of the underlying
Mm-hmm.
parts.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing changed there was like 4 years ago when somebody, because 10 years ago I was like, look at me, I'm a great guitar player, look at me, look at me, look at what I can. And now I have the guts to tell that and to be very open about it. But it was really about that. And 4 years ago, somebody came after me after a gig, and she said to me, I have cancer and I'm very ill and I'm going to die within a couple of months. I'm suffering from lots of pain. But what you did, guys, that was amazing. You really shined the light in my complete summer. And I was like, we just played covers. It wasn't that special. And then I was like, no. We touched her heart. And from that moment on, I no longer play music just to satisfy my ego, but really to touch other people's hearts. And when you change that intention, magical things happen. And that's for me
Mm-hmm.
is really there is the key. What is the attention that you
Mm-hmm.
are having a conversation, that you are doing certain things? I mean, people think they have like a kind of a person and they want to become famous or earn lots of money and things like that, which is all fine. But I mean, think about set your intention, and it's a very spiritual thing, but it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
it's
agree.
again with that giving, eh? What you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I so agree with what you say. I think we can also do that for ourselves. Like, what is the intention for the things we do, even when nobody is looking?
Yeah.
Why do we do these things? And I try to have myself be guided by curiosity and wonder. I think those are two of the most beautiful human qualities we can have, because they're so connected to creativity, innovation, to, change whatever. And so I always try to look at myself with curiosity and wonder. Like, who are you today? And so is that what we're doing today? Like that way. But for instance, the book, if I had started, because that's definitely what I would have done in the past, right? I mean, I was very ambitious, very driven, trying to build other people's dreams for me, obviously, but still
Mhm.
very ambitious and very driven. If I had done the same with the book and I had focused on the end, namely getting a book published, which is
Mhm.
something I'm actually not thinking about now, I would not have enjoyed the process, and I would probably have quit a long time ago, because that's not the driver. I don't care. The driver is, I want to write a book. I have a lot of things to say, even if only to myself. And I really want to see this through from a creative perspective. I want the change and the growth that comes from seeing this whole process through for
Yeah.
me. Because I know even now, after having written 100,000 words, I'm not the same person anymore than the one that I was when I started, because I've added an incredible thing to my bag of tricks, and that is I can actually write 100,000 words if I want to. I can actually fucking do it. So I can do it again, which is amazing. Like, I can do that. And that's really my wish for everyone. Like, surprise yourself and grow for yourself. Because when we have these pieces of confidence, we can really do anything.
Yeah. And also the fact that you mentioned enjoy the process, because
Mm-hmm.
it sounds really well, enjoy the process. It's so important because you can only step in a river once.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And if you don't enjoy that process, it's going to be a long and a hard journey.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and when then the payoff comes, if you want to focus on the payoff, you will not enjoy it.
Well, and the question is, should you even do it if you're not enjoying it? Because I mean, and I understand, right, that people have to do things against their will to make money and to survive and all of that. I understand that. And I understand that I'm speaking from a privileged position where, you know, I have an established business, and so I have a lot of freedom. But still, I believe that the purpose we have here is to be happy. And if we are to be happy, we do need a little bit of agency about the things we do and do not do in our life. And too many people, I think they don't have a choice in that. And I think we do. I really think we do. And it has a lot to do with how we want to treat ourselves on a daily basis.
Yeah, look at you. You could also easily choose the victim role for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
and really, yeah, dig into it, and say, look at me. But it's really it really shows your strength to overcome that and to really say, no, I want a different life.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my life. I want a different life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also we only have one, right? I mean, depending on what you believe in, right? And maybe we have more, but right now I'm living this one. So I really wanted to count. It's finite. It's like such a rare reason. Like life is such a precious, rare gift. Yeah, I can choose to, you know, be sad every day, and I know some people really struggle, you know, with depression and with and I think those are very, very valid things. But again, there is agency, and I think even if it's just a little bit, a tiny bit of agency, we need to take that and we need to do something with it. Nobody else is going to do it for us.
That's it. Nobody else is going to save you.
No,
There is no
we
God. There is no nothing. You're going to do it yourself.
you have to do it by yourself. Yeah. Hallelujah.
Yeah, masturbation, hallelujah, and one
Yeah.
conversation.
Yes.
Murielle
Good
Marie,
preaching.
this is going to be the number one of every conversation I ever had. And Murielle Marie, I want to thank you because I think you're a really beautiful soul and woman, and with lots of strength. I'm really, how do you say that? Under the indruk, I'm impressed. It's yeah,
Oh,
it's
thank you.
I like the intensity. By the way, like it how you show yourself who you really are, the lessons you've learned, and yeah, the fact that you really, yeah, transformed and made your mess into a message.
I like that. That's a good one. I might steal that.
I didn't
I'll
invent
quote
it.
you.
Yeah, you can. I didn't invent it. I took it from Tony Robbins. So
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah.
okay. I might have some copyright issues then if
But
yeah,
I don't know if he invented it. So it's like
but thank you.
some things like songs which are also like these melodies like accepted, so you cannot copy them. But anyway, so thank you for the. Yeah, we're almost. Our conversation took after almost 2 hours. And so thank you very much. I wish you all the best with your book, and certainly I'm going to buy it. And if you like, you can put an autograph in it because I want a signed version.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Peter. This was one of the better conversations of 2020.
Look,
So, yeah, what a gift you gave me. Thank you so much. I loved all your questions. And you know, change also happens within a 2-hour period. And I am stepping away from this interview a different person that I came into it. And
yeah,
I have you to thank for that.
yeah.
So thank you.
This the same thing for me. The same thing for me. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.